Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So today we'll hear from Srimad Bhagawatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, texts 17 and 18. Text 17. Tasmad Yuganta Shvasanavaghurna Tasmad Yuganta Shvasanavaghurna Jalormi Chakrat Salilat Virudham Jalormi Chakrat Salilat Virudham Upashita Kanjam Lokatatvam Upashita Kanjam Ulokatatvam Natmanam Adhavidat Adideva Natmanam Adhavidat Adideva Tasmad Yuganta Shvasanavaghurna Jalormi Chakrat Salilat Virudham Upashita Kanjam Ulokatatvam Natmanam Adhavidaradideva Tasmad Yuganta Shvasanavaghurna Jalormi Chakrat Salilat Virudham Upashita Kanjam Ulokatatvam Natmanam Adhavidaradideva Others, please.
Yadasmadikanta Svasamnavagurna Jalavoni Chakrat Salila Virudam Upashita Kanjam Vilodatam Natmanavadadeva.
Tasmat, from there.
From there,
Yuganta,
Yuganta,
at the end of the millennium.
at the end of the millennium,
Shvasana,
Shasana,
the air of devastation.
the air of devastation,
Avakurna,
Avagurna,
because of movement.
because of movement,
Jala,
Jala,
water.
water,
Urmi Chakrat,
Umi Chakra,
out of the circle of waves.
out of the circle of waves,
Salilat,
Salat,
from the water.
from the water,
Virudham,
Virudam,
situated on them.
situated on them,
Upashrita,
Upashita,
having the shelter of.
having the shelter of
Kanjan,
Kanjam,
lotus flower.
lotus flower,
Who,
who,
in astonishment.
in astonishment,
Lokatatvam,
Lokatavam,
the mystery of creation.
the mystery of creation,
Na,
not,
not.
not,
Atmanam,
Atmanam,
himself.
himself,
Adha,
Adha,
perfectly.
perfectly,
Avidat,
Avida,
could understand.
could understand,
Adideva,
Adideva,
the first demigod.
the first demigod,
Translation. Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus, or himself. At the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves. Responsibly, please. Lord Brahma,
Lord Brahma,
situated in that lotus,
situated in that lotus,
could not perfectly understand the creation,
could not perfectly understand the creation,
the lotus,
the lotus,
or himself.
or himself.
At the end of the millennium,
At the end of the millennium,
the air of devastation
the air of devastation
began to move the water and the lotus
began to move the water and the lotus
in great circular waves.
in great circular waves.
Srila Prabhupada's purport, Lord Brahma was perplexed about his creation, the lotus of the world, even though he tried to understand them for 1 millennium, which is beyond the calculation in solar years of human beings. No one therefore can know the mystery of the creation and cosmic manifestation simply by mental speculation. The human being is so limited in his capacity that without the help of the Supreme, he can hardly understand the mystery of the will of the Lord in terms of creation, continuance, and destruction. 18. Eshayo shatsavaham abja prashta etat kutovabjam ananyadapsu astyadhastad eha kinchanatad adhishtam yatra satanubhav adhishtitam yatra satanubhavyam. Lord Brahma, in his ignorance, contemplated, who am I that am situated on top of this lotus? Wherefrom has it sprouted? There must be something downwards, and that from which this lotus is grown must be within the waters. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The subject matter of the speculations of Brahma in the beginning regarding the creation of the cosmic manifestation is still a subject matter for mental speculators. The most intelligent man is he who tries to find the cause of his personal existence and that of the whole cosmic creation, and thus tries to find the ultimate cause. If his attempt is properly executed with penances and perseverance, it is sure to be crowned with success. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukhaṁ karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim dakripatam vande Shri Gurun Dinataram. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamagam Dadati Svapadantikam Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindho Yevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Tasmad Yuganta Shvasana Vakurna Jalormi Chakra Salila Virudham Upashita Kanjam Ulokata Tvanat Natmanam Adhad Vida Adideva. Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus, or himself. At the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves. Kadesha yosavaham abja prashta etak piturvam jamanan nelapsu astyad hastad eha kinchanaitad adhishtitam yatra satanuphavyam. Lord Brahma, in his ignorance, contemplated, who am I, situated on top of this lotus? Wherefrom has it sprouted? There must be something downwards, and that from which this lotus is grown must be within the water. So Brahma had a task, and it became really clear to him that he didn't have a clue about anything, much less what his task was. So he's sitting here completely bewildered. And we ultimately know where this is going. We take shelter of the Lord. And as we see in the second canto, he meets with the Lord face to face. The Lord is dressed in Gopavesh at this meeting, I think at least according to Gopal Tavani Upanishad. And he shakes Brahma's hand, which is pretty cool, I think. But in the meantime, Brahma is trying to figure out what to do. And he must, his bewilderment must include some embarrassment. Sometimes you sit here, you've got the YouTube thing aimed at you and the microphone pointed right at your head. And you have to speak something about Krishna in a way that's going to purify me and everybody else in the room. And it's occasionally terrifying. Therefore, before we speak, before I speak anyway, I guess I'm asking for a shield for my imposter syndrome or something. It's a common thing, especially a very common thing among like high-level executives, especially women high-level executives I've read, but also among college faculty, imposter syndrome. I attended back in, must have been early 90s at San Diego State where I taught. We had what we call the year of the teacher practitioner. I think that's what we called it. And we had a speaker who actually addressed something that I was very interested in. It was a part of my master's thesis. He was speaking about writer's block. This is a guy who was a clinical psychologist, taught at SUNY State University of New York at Stony Brook, I think, and Bob Boyce. And he was a clinical psychologist, and at that point, he had been counseling other professors for about 30 years on how to deal with writer's block. There's this thing when you're on the tenure track, if you want to keep getting promoted and ultimately make a full professor, you have to publish a certain number of, speak at a certain number of conferences, publish a certain number of papers and even books, when you apply for your promotion. And so Boyce had been counseling these people, such people, for decades at that point. And one of the things he said that contributes to writer's block is this gnawing fear in each of us that this is going to be the article that shows everybody else I don't belong. And when he said that, there were probably 700, 800 faculty members in the room at the time. There was nervous laughter, there was uncomfortable shifting in the seats all over the room, including me. But this is a real common thing. So we take shelter of our teachers by asking them to please inspire us, that we might be able to say something that benefits us and everyone else in the room. So Brahman is kind of in a similar situation. So we know that, this is where I need to go. What we see here in these verses is that there are things we cannot figure out by ourselves. So we've been trying in different ways. People have been trying. Human beings have been trying in different ways. Since there's any memory of what human beings did, figuring out our origin. Same thing Brahma's faced with here. Just wants to understand where he came from and what he's about. Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita that he's actually the operative principle, I guess, for want of a more apt word at the moment, in everything. Whatever we want, because what Brahma's looking for is his origin, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adhokshaja. Adhokshaja means cannot be understood by everything from, in Sanskrit, atuksha. At is the first letter, ksha is like the last of the, what do you call them? Yeah, well, they're like conjunct consonants or something, right? So if you see a list of those, that's going to be your last one, ksha. So in America, we'd say everything from A to Z. In UK, they would say everything from A to Z. So if he can't be known by everything we can imagine, then there must be something else, some other way to know it, to understand this. So Krishna says, if you want anything to happen, it all comes down to me. We're reading from the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This was the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita I memorized. Before the 72 Macmillan Gita came out, Sundar actually printed out transliterations of all the verses and had all the Brahmacharis, so this is probably sometime in 71, had all the Brahmacharis memorize it. So we were all walking around chanting chapter 7 of the Bhagavad Gita even before the verses came out in print. But as I mentioned the other day, I've probably forgotten more verses than I've ever learned, so I have to read. So Krishna says, Rasoham Upsukamteya Prabhasmi Sashi Shuryaho Pranava Sarvavedeshu Shabdake Purusham Nushu. I'm the taste of water of Samukriti. I'm the light of the sun and the moon. I am the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and the ability in man. Shabdake Purusham Nushu. I mean, this, the drive to make the endeavor that human beings show to figure things out. He says, that's me. But it doesn't stop there. Oh, by the way, Srila Prabhupada makes a really interesting comment at the beginning of his purport on this verse. He says, this verse explains how the Lord is all pervasive by his diverse material and spiritual energies. And he goes on to say that there's just no conflict between personalism and impersonalism. One who actually knows God knows that the impersonal conception and the personal conception are simultaneously present in everything. There's no contradiction. And this is what we've been getting in the Bhagavatam, especially since we began studying the second chapter. This is that post that's being pounded by the Bhagavatam. But Krishna continues, Punyo Gandha Prativyam Cha Tejas Chasmi Vibhavasa Jivanam Sarva Bhuteshu Tapas Chasmi Chapastasmi Tapasvisu. I am the original fragrance of the earth. I am the heat and fire. I am the life of all that lives. I am the penances of the ascetics. Ichamam Sarvabhutanam Vidhikarta Sanatana. Bhutir Bhutimatam Asmi. Tejas Tejas Vinam. Know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. Balam, Balavatam Chaham, Kamaraga Vivarjitam, Dharma Viruddha Bhuti Shokamosmi Bhavatarsha. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principles, O son of the Bharata. So whatever it is, whatever works, and whatever we're able to make work, that's Krishna. And Krishna underlines this in his meeting with Brahma in the second canto, chapter 9. I used to know these two. Ahameva sameva gre nanya yatsarasa param paschadaham gareta chayova shisheta sosmya. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead who was existing before the creation when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now, whatever you happen to see now, that is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Ritetam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyaratmano mayam yata bhaso yatatam. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it's without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. Yata mahanti bhutan bhuteshu chas vasheshvanu pravishtanya pravishtani tata nateshu nateshvanu. O Brahma, know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I'm outside of everything. Itavadeva jigyasam tattva jigyasanatam anvaya yatirekapyam yatsyat sarvatra sarvada. A person who's searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this and all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. In other words, if you miss this one thing, you're going to miss everything. And ultimately, all your endeavors are going to be futile as well. And we see this throughout the Bhagavatam. Dhruva wanted a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather's. He was advised to take shelter of the personality of Godhead. Hiranyakashipu wanted to be not just all kinds of powerful, but he wanted to be immortal. So he approached Adideva, the original demigod, for such a blessing, because the guy's got a really long life, seems to live forever. And Brahma said, I can't give you what I don't have. So Hiranyakashipu, very clever, was thinking, okay, started calculating. Okay, I can't be killed in the day or in the night, not inside or outside, by a human or an animal, weapon, anything like that, on and on. He had his list, and by the time he got to the end of his list, he thought he had it nailed. I tricked the guy. Didn't work out so well. And on we go through the Bhagavatam. Every time we see someone makes some great endeavor without the sanction of the Lord, without at least acknowledging the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's simply doomed to failure. So, that brings us to the situation that we see in the 11th canto. I didn't look to see which of the sages said it again. Tasmad gurum prapadyeta jigyasa shayotama shabde parecha nishnatam brahmani upashamasham. For those who actually see through the facade, through the veil, through the illusion of the material world, so they see the scam of the whole business. That however you try, no matter how long, it's not really going to get you where you want to go. Those people need a guru. There's a therefore there, right? And the antecedent to the prayer, to the therefore is, you've seen the futility of all kinds of human endeavor. So people have been trying to figure all these things out with their minds and senses, figure out things that are beyond the ken of their mind and senses. For as long as we know. As long as we know. And we use those instruments that we have immediate access to try to understand. And we come up with all sorts of interesting things. So now, especially over the last 300 years or so, since the scientific renaissance and the scientific revolution, people think that, we've got this whole, now we're going to get it. Now we're going to figure it out. Prabhupada used to make fun of the scientists who say, we're on the verge of discovering the key to perpetual life. Prabhupada, just look up post-dated check in the database, see how many times you come across that. It's probably at least a few dozen. Just now coming, right? We all know that one. So it's like I ordered something and it's been sent in the mail, and it's going to be delivered Tuesday, the 14th, before 9 p.m. And so, every once in a while, every couple of days, you check the tracking, and all of a sudden, on Tuesday the 14th, it says, well, the last place we saw it was so-and-so. Right? Narayani, your package ever come? No.
This is lost now.
They've admitted that it's lost. I remember when I mailed my Dundee here. I have this fishing rod, aluminum fishing rod tube that I use to protect it when I'm traveling or when I need to send it somewhere. It's cheaper to mail it than to bring it on the plane. It's like $50 or $80 to bring it on the plane, and I couldn't afford any extra luggage. So that thing was lost for 6 weeks. Oh, even better. No, this wasn't the mail, so I can't use them. This was United Airlines. She punched it down. Costa Rica to California just before I accepted sannyas. This one time, I thought I would ship my I would put my Thakurjis in checked luggage. I always brought them. I've always had a bag that my wife used to call my temple in a bag, because they and all their stuff were in this one bag, and I always took that as a carry-on, and because I couldn't stand not knowing where they were. Now, this way I knew where they were. This one time I decided I'm going to put them in the checked luggage, because the security people they see me, oh, what's in there? Oh, can I touch them? They want to manhandle them. And sometimes I go, oh, maybe there's some benefit. Oh, who knows what those nitrile gloves have just touched, whatever. So I put them in my checked baggage, and my baggage got lost for like 3 weeks.
Oh.
And United didn't have a clue. There was a whole thing that happened, but it's like 3 weeks before they came back to me. I said, oh, boy's been on a little adventure, huh? Want to tell me about it sometime? So how did I get to the
shipping with the mail packages?
Yeah, so you get, anyway, so you do your best to figure it out. So all of a sudden, I realized the U.S. Postal Service has no clue where that package is now.
So you were saying about the scientists were just about to...
So the scientists are giving us these post-dated checks, so we get these tracking notices, that ding our phone every once in a while. Yep, still lost. This has been our thing for millennia, well, at least for the last 300 years. We're gonna have it all figured out any minute now. Meanwhile, you develop all kinds of wildly competitive ideas. You've got string theory, you've got quantum mechanics, you've got a bunch of different things. You've got whole multiverse theory and all sorts of things going on. And the mathematicians who are advocates of one will get into big fights with the mathematicians who advocate the other. And still, they will tell us, we'll get this figured out any day now. We'll get the key to the secrets of the universe any day now. It's not happening, because this is something simply beyond their ability to understand. So the way to understand this is Shabda, is by hearing. So the other day, I cited a verse. I think, did I attribute it to Kavi Karnapur?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur.
I didn't know.
I do that probably 30% of the time when I refer to that verse. I'm flailing about trying to remember. That's usually when I come up with it on the fly. So I thought I would just share the whole verse here. This is from a commentary, not Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's, the commentary that we generally see, but there's another commentary that he wrote on the Bhagavatam called Chaitanya Mata Manjusha. And so he says, Aradhyo Bhagavan Bhajeshatana Yastatam Vrindavanam Ramya Kachirupasana Rajavadu Vardena Kalpita. Prabhupada cited that line a number of times over the years. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pum Marto Maham Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matam Idam Tattva Napara. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, is the Supreme. He's worshipped along with his transcendental abode of Vrindavan. So Vrindavan is every bit as worshipful as Krishna. The most pleasing form of worship for the Lord is that which was conceived of by the gopis of Vrindavan. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless authority on everything, and pure love of Godhead is the ultimate aim, the ultimate goal of life for all. These statements, for which we have the highest regard, are the opinion, of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So you can get a bumper sticker. Mahaprabhu said it, I believe it, that settles it. There used to be a bumper sticker going around. Bible said it, I believe it, that settles it. So if we want to understand everything according to this verse, we have to approach Srimad Bhagavatam, and we have to approach Srimad Bhagavatam on its terms. So that means we go through the Guru and the Guru Parampara, and we hear submissively, and when questions arise, we pose them, and try to understand how the answers apply to our lives, and that's how we understand everything that's worth understanding, and how we understand also how to conduct our lives. And stuff. Questions or comments?
You know, in just figured out, I've been hearing about this since the sovereign movement started in my world in Hawaii, but the understanding part of saying you understand things when the laws pertain to you. But when you don't understand them, if you say you don't understand them in the court of law before entering, it means that they don't pertain to you. And the judge can't judge you if you don't understand it.
Yeah, if you're not able to understand, say if you go into court and you're not able to understand the charges against you, then you're given other facility. So you're not punished, but ideally treated, although that's not always what happens. Anything else? Jack or Paul?
How important is tapa or penances, austerities to us in our Krishna consciousness?
How much is, how important
Like
is,
the penance, austerities.
you said something before that?
Tapa.
Oh, tapa.
Tapas.
It's the beginning. Austerity means you do things you ordinarily wouldn't. Would you ordinarily sleep in your car, get up at 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning? I mean, we built, now we become accustomed to a lot of these things. These things have become, they say habit is second nature. So these things have become like habit to us. It's been more decades than I can remember when since I've said I can't eat meat or I can't drink. I don't eat meat, I don't drink. I can do whatever I want. Right? I'm an old man, I can get away with all kinds of most kinds of stuff.
Oh my God, where am I?
Not everything.
Yeah, tell you the-
I mean, on the basis of being an old man, I might be able to get away with a lot of stuff, but I can't get away with a lot of stuff. I never get away with anything. I didn't even get away with going swimming yesterday. So, that's my life. So, so these things that, we think of them as sort of second nature. But the people who move into the temple will tell you about the adjustment that they have to make. And then sometimes that reminds us of the adjustments we made to live in the temple. So some penance, some austerity, some accepting of things that we might not otherwise be wild about is necessary in any endeavor. You want a college degree? You got to go through that 4 or 5 years of college. You actually have to take the classes, do the stuff, pay the money, and all that. You want a paycheck? You have to actually go to work, usually. So however, it's not the whole thing. And it's not austerity. It's not renunciation. It's not even detachment. that gives us bhakti. It's bhakti that gives us bhakti. But we make ourselves available for that by showing up and showing Bhakti Devi that at least theoretically we'd like to try. So yes, some austerity is going to be necessary. At least it's going to be helpful. And our process, the process of surrendering, which is what we see happens in the instance of either voluntarily or involuntarily, of all these people in the Bhagavatam who try to do these amazing things, and they realize they ultimately, they either got whacked or they realized they had to surrender to Krishna, one or the other. There's not a third choice. So, so some is helpful at least.
And on another dimension, the recommended austerity of this age is Harinama, Harinama, Harinama.
Yeah, tough duty. Hang out with your friends and sing your hearts out. Yeah. Atma?
Maharaj, I heard the definition of sovereignty is sovereign doesn't mean just a stately, kingly position. Being a sovereign person actually doesn't have anything to do with the royal pain in the ass thing. Sovereignty means that you're okay with yourself, and even the way that you're pulled over by a police officer, if you claim your sovereignty properly, then nobody can mess with you. But sovereignty means solving the reign of God, which means definition, finding definition. All these definitions like tapasya. In yoga, tapas means get on your yoga mat, but tapasya means fire too.
Yeah, for Arjuna, yoga meant get off your mat.
Yep.
Okay, I'll end there. Thank you so much. Gantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Jai.
Bhagavat Prasad Ki Jai.